Hello, 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 hello. This is Willie Cartwright. We're from Save to Sane. Hope all of you are doing well out there, and thank you for joining us for this episode of From Save to Sane. Again, I am Willie Cartwright, and I'm thankful and fortunate to have all of you out there. We have a great topic this week. I'm extra excited. I am headed early tomorrow morning to my uh, HBCU homecoming, my undergraduate homecoming. Those of you who attended and graduated from, or not even just necessarily graduated, but all of you who have attended HBCU, certainly those of you who graduated from one, understand um, the significance of homecoming, how much fun and exciting and important it is. I usually go every 5 years. I go in conjunction with every 5 year anniversary of my fraternity line that I pledged on. This is 35 years for us, um, the Mighty Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Also, this is the 150th year of my university's founding, the great Alabama A&M University. So I will be in the house as of tomorrow. So I'm extra excited about that. But I'm excited about today as well. Just wanted to sort of get that off my chest. And those of you who attended an HBCU, kudos. My wife attended a PWI, and she went to homecoming with me 1 year and said that's enough for me. That's not my thing. So it's good, but it's fine. Christine, what's going on? Glad to have you with us from Texas. All right. Glad to have you. Glad you're with us today. I want to get started the way I normally get started. It looks like Taisha left a comment about what 12:30 p.m. earlier today. So maybe she's listening. Maybe we can get her. Maybe we can get her to make some comments. Hopefully she's there. But I've been telling you guys for weeks that I have been missing Taisha and trying to reach out to her. I guess we actually connected on Messenger, and she's doing fine. She's doing well. So we're glad to hear that. And so that's how I always start off my program by saying thank you to Taisha and my wife. Taisha, as you all know, or those of you who've listened to this program before, Taisha is instrumental in me doing this program. She's helped me immensely, and I'm certainly appreciative of that and will always be. And so I will always say thank you to her. And absolutely the same for my wife, who is in the background, was extremely supportive, my number one fan, as she say. But certainly appreciate her. And thirdly, thank you to all of you who are loyal listeners, who always come on, who always join the chat. We certainly appreciate that. We have over 500 subscribers. There's a handful of you guys who come on live with us and leave comments, and we certainly appreciate that. We're growing. All of the 500 plus subscribers are organic. They are real people. There are people who have tuned in and enjoyed what they heard, or at least are inquisitive about what they've been hearing. They don't necessarily have to agree, but they're willing to listen, and they may disagree in some areas, but they find enough value in the program to where they are subscribers. So we certainly appreciate all of that from all of you. So thank you for that. Because I know Taisha is out there listening, I will have to promote my book because she always reminds me you need to always promote your book. So, from Saved to Sane, my journey away from Christianity and why Christianity has been detrimental to the African American community, Willie O. Cartwright. You can get that off of Amazon. It is there. So we certainly appreciate you guys for doing that as well. And so, yeah, I was debating as to whether or not to tell you guys about a new business venture. I'm relaunching a business, but I need to move it further down the line. And as we get closer, I will be making an announcement about a new business that I'm doing. Um, and so we will do that as we get a lot closer. And so thank you for that. But today's topic is Christian fatigue. Are we tired? Those of us who listen, if I know some Christians who are tired of Christianity and all the things that they see going on and hear from so-called Christians. So I know for sure that those of us who are non-Christians are exhausted. Um, this topic came about, and I always tell you guys how we came up with the topic or why we came up with the topic. Um, let's see. Question. I'm sorry. I'm reading a comment from Christine. Where's your link? I want a signed copy. Christine, I'm going to put my email in there. Send me your information on my email, and then I will get you a signed copy mailed to you. I'll see you the Cash App and all of that. So I will leave my email in here in just a second. But so thank you. I certainly appreciate that. I certainly will sign and send you a signed copy. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So how do we get on this topic? Where is this topic? Well, I just being exhausted seeing and hearing um, Christianity or Christianity themed topics and events, and everywhere we go, people assume that you are a Christian. They're praying at before every event and every ceremony, no matter what organization that you're a part of. And then I've been seeing some people talking about this as well on TikTok and some other social media platforms. And I decided this would be a great topic for us. And so, Christian fatigue, are you tired of Christianity? Are you tired of what we see, the whole spectrum of Christianity and Christians, whether it be the attempt to turn this country into a theocracy with Christianity at the center? If you look at some of the laws that are being attempted to be passed, whether they're local, state, or even federal, um, your president has as a committee or an organization within his administration that's specifically about pushing Christianity out to the masses. Um, and so there are states, those of you may be in some of these states, whether it's Texas, Christine, whether it's Oklahoma, whether it's Ohio, certainly the southern states, where they're trying to enact laws where they're pushing to have the Ten Commandments posted all over in every school or every public building. There are a push to outlaw same-sex marriage, or there's an attack on the LGBTQ, trans people, all of that. And all of that is part of this whole Christian thing, doctrine, dogma, where Christians seem to think that as a collective country living by their dogma or doctrine of Christianity is better for all of us as a country. I certainly disagree with that. There are many things in Christianity that I find appalling, but just the mere idea that they believe that they're right and everyone else is wrong, that is part of the exhaustion. I'm exhausted that so many Christians don't know how to practice their faith in private, but they feel the need. And this is part of what Christianity is. This is part of how Christianity was spread. It is part of their foundation to go out and convert those of us that they consider to be lost. I guess as a Christian, the 40 years that I spent as a Christian, I guess I didn't really think about how exhausting it could be if I was pushing my religion on people who either were part of another religion or part of no religion at all. I never thought about that. I never really did that. But I lived in the country. We all live in the country, in an environment, especially growing up in the South, especially growing up in Alabama and spending almost 30 years in Georgia, where Christianity was at the center of pretty much everything. And I guess being a Christian, being in it is hard to see it. But now that I am out of it, that I am whatever label that one wants to place upon me, I know for Christians and people of other religious beliefs, because I do not believe in their God or any God whatsoever, they label me as an atheist. I am becoming more and more comfortable with that label. I have no issue with it at all. Although, as I always say, I don't know everything, and there may be something else out there beyond us that even it goes beyond the way people define a God. There may be something else out there, and I leave open to those possibilities. But as we look at it today from the standpoint of do you believe or do I believe in any gods or deities? then the answer would be no. And so for many people, they would label me as an atheist, and I'm good with that. I call myself a secular humanist. The secularism is really about sort of politics, mostly when it comes to separation of church and state, those things. But I am a humanist. But regardless, I am not a believer in any of your made-up gods. And so being in that position now and listening and watching, especially what is happening now in this country, is extremely exhausting. I always talk about how no matter what organization I've been a part of, religion, and in this case, Christianity, has been a large part of it. Christina said 100% tired. Absolutely. Those of you who are out there who are listening, please chime in with your comments or your questions. Certainly, we will try to address those, and I certainly thank you for that. But things like, I talked about the Ten Commandments. I think one of the things, if you look at this current administration, Christian nationalism has become a huge issue. And so it was enough that we had to endure the everyday, mundane, run-of-the-mill, I'm a Christian, all the Christian stuff. Now, through Christian nationalism and Christian nationalists, which we've always had those people out there, by a different name, but they were not as emboldened as they have become in recent because of President Trump. This Christian ideology has become dangerous, has become physically dangerous, literally dangerous to many people who don't subscribe to that belief system. Christine said, "I don't believe in a God that's invisible." I don't either, Christina, and I am one who believes that if whatever there is a God, everything is inside of you. You come equipped with everything that you need, and so that's what I believe in that. But yeah, and so from a practical standpoint, the reason why this topic is more important than just I'm tired of Christianity because everywhere I go there's prayer, this and that and other. It's because Christian nationalists are using Christianity, hiding behind Christianity, and it has become dangerous for the rest of us, in a sense of the laws that they want to pass, the way that we are viewed, those of us who are non-believers, and even if you are a believer but you're not part of the white elite heterosexual class, you're still a target, right? And so those are things that we really, really have to take a look at and why those things are happening. Think about this. With Christianity, its power is in its early indoctrination. Those of you who've been part of any religion, especially Christianity, understands, and if you live in this country for any length of time, you know how much we are indoctrinated with Christianity from birth. From the cradle, everything that we see on television, in our school systems, even though, again, the part of the work I do is working on separation of church and state. But regardless, it was there. I grew up at a time where we literally said collective prayer in schools before they cut it out and moved it to just silence, or 30 minutes of silence. 30 seconds of silence, or whatever it is now. Now being back in the school system, substituting from time to time. I see, at least here in Nevada, just outside of Vegas, where I am, they do a 30 seconds of silence. And interesting enough, the first couple of schools that I substituted at, and they had this 30 seconds of silence, I noticed that many of the students were not acknowledging that. And I even asked a group of students why that was. And they just really didn't have an answer. But what that tells me is that at least the most recent generations, I think that they're not being as indoctrinated into religion as we were. We would get in serious trouble if we talked during this 30 seconds of silence, if we didn't acknowledge it, we didn't bow our heads, whatever it was. That is not the case now, and I see that as progress. But the early indoctrination is sort of the oil, the gas that fuels Christianity. They talk about how they need to get kids early. One of the things that we talked about the last time we worked together was the whole Charlie Kirk issue. One of the reasons why the Charlie Kirk situation was such a big deal for believers, evangelicals, and Christians, and people of Christian nationalism, was because Charlie Kirk was the face of young Christianity, young Christian nationalists, young evangelicals. Um, Charlie Kirk represented the opposite of what many of these people thought that they were seeing in the younger society. People pulling away from the church, away from religion, certainly away from Christianity. And Charlie Kirk was symbolic of the new wave, the young people. He was in his early 30s. He appealed to a lot of young people, college age kids, and even younger. And so he was going to be um, Christianity's, at least evangelical Christians and Christian nationalists. He was their ticket to bringing in more youth. And so that was one of the things, one of the reasons why his death hit really hard in that community. And so to me, it was a scary thing because um, when you think about the number of young people that listened to him and followed him, and racism and bigotry was not a non-starter for them. It was really scary, and the fact that he and other people were able to disguise their bigotry and their hatred as they're doing now behind religion and have people to fall for it, not just evangelical, white evangelical Christians, but some African Americans as well. And so this indoctrination, um, we are with Christianity everywhere. And I live out west now, and I'm away from the South. And I will admit there is less of it here. I see less churches. Um, I've been counting. I've been here a year, and I think we've been here a year and 3 months or 4 months or so. And I've only had three people to talk to me about church. Um, and one, I sort of brought the conversation up because I was explaining something else about what I was teaching or whatever. And so this person, she took the opportunity to invite me to her church, and I politely declined. But the other two people mentioned it first, and so this is an improvement because you guys, if you lived in the South or even the Midwest, uh, people will oftentimes ask you. At least in the South, we always have a running joke of they don't ask you if you go to church; they ask you what church you attend because the assumption is that everyone goes to church, right? And so that's the next thing that. The assumption in this country is that everyone is religious, everyone goes to church, everyone is Christianity. I mean, there's people who are Catholic and Muslim, but for the most part, the majority of people are Christians, and so there's always that assumption that you go to church, um, and that everyone is religious, even more so than going to church, because I think people are starting to understand that even a lot of Christians have stopped going to church. But the more dangerous assumption is that, and the more frustrating assumption is that everybody is religious and everybody is a Christian, and so people begin conversations and events on the premise that everybody are believers or believe in Christianity, and to me, that is extremely frustrating. I don't know how many events I've attended, social events I've attended. Uh, Less here, I will admit, less here in Vegas than maybe in the South. But the one thing you can always guarantee, no matter where you are in this country, if you're around other African Americans, I don't care where they are, the assumption is going to be that you're all are Christians. And so the organizations, the events that I've been to, they start with a prayer, they end with a prayer. Um, God and Jesus is mentioned often in these conversations. I've made my position known in one of these organizations or one of these groups that I'm with, and they are polite when they mention it. My goal is not to stop or prohibit people from mentioning or talking about their faith. Not at all. But my goal is to let people know that there are people who look like them or look like me that are not religious, and that we are out there. And so I think that my voice deserves to be heard just as much as anyone else's voice, if you are a believer. Also, there may be other people who think like us, who are not believers, and looking to connect with other non-believers. And so I'm vocal about my non-belief, and so that helps. But again, it is frustrating because Christianity is everywhere. The belief in this God, is so-called, is everywhere. The assumption that everybody believes in this God is everywhere, and so it is. It can be really, really frustrating at times. Um, so yeah, that's that's where we are on that. For me, it's that's the fatigue of it. Watching sports and every time a team wins and they interview a player, and the first thing he mentions is that, oh, thank God, God is this, and Jesus is my Savior, my Lord, and Jesus Christ, and da da da. God don't give a damn about who won. If there really was a God, He don't give a damn about who won the game. Um, it is hypocrisy at its best. You prayed that you win, or you prayed. And so what are the other team? What is the other team doing? They're also praying. So is God picking favorites? He picked your team to win over the next team? Are you acknowledging? Now people. One of the things I encounter a lot from Christians is that they often ask me, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? If you're not a believer, why is it that you talk a lot about religion, Christianity, God, or whatever? And I said, it's because you guys being Christians, talk about your faith and your religion and your Jesus and your God all the time without even being prompted. And so if you can do that, then I can talk about my disbelief. And I go on to tell them, from a practical standpoint, we know that religion, in particular Christianity, has been harmful, and it still is harmful to a segment of our community. Historically, it has been extremely harmful. I think indoctrinating young kids at an early age is borderline child abuse, and so we go on and on and on and on. But because these people are so vocal about their belief, and it's like preaching, and pun intended, it's like preaching to the choir, because they know that there are so many, the majority of people who are believers, they are extremely comfortable in stressing their belief. Um, and so, Insured, glad to have you. Say continue. I'm not sure what you mean by continue, but glad to have you. I don't know if this is your first time. But yeah, so that's what we do. One of the other issues I want to talk about that I'm really exhausted about is the whole morality issue. I don't know how many of you out there get into conversations or dialogue with your religious Christian counterparts, family, or friends. But oftentimes, in many of my dialogues, the issue of morality comes up. And so, and then I'm talking about morality and purpose, right? Many Christians believe that you don't, you you can't be a moral person, a good moral person, if you don't believe in God and Jesus Christ. There are a number of fallacies to that. There are a number of issues to that. First one being, it is absolutely incorrect. I don't know how many times I've had to educate people on how humanity got morality through evolution, um, long before we developed any of these religions that we have now. Secondly, it is scary because what you're basically saying to me is that if you didn't have this invisible God or deity looking down on you, there's no telling what you would do. But because this invisible God or deity is looking down on you, you tend to act right. How about just acting right and doing right for the sake of acting right and doing right? That's called humanity. I, as a human being, don't want to see other human beings suffer, be in pain, or go through things that are unnecessary, that cause them unnecessary pain. That is humanity. I don't need a God or a religion to make me do right by other people. I've been married for 20 years. I don't need a God to tell me that I need to be faithful to my wife. I'm faithful to my wife because I love her. It has nothing to do with my religion or whatever. And so I feel really bad for individuals who say, well, you can't have morality without God. That is ludicrous. And so we go into that. The same thing with purpose. I literally have seen people, and some of you may have seen people who say, "How can you have purpose or purpose-filled life without God?" That is bullshit. I don't. What do you mean? I have purpose every day. I wake up with purpose. The purpose is to see the world be a better place. The purpose is to make everyone that I come in contact with feel better about themselves. The purpose is enjoying my life. The purpose is reaching the kids that I talk to. The purpose is in creating a happy life for my wife and her and I enjoying each other. My purpose is living life to its fullest. My purpose is doing the work that I'm doing, the vocation that I have, and this that I'm doing here. My purpose is coming on here every other week on the podcast. So there are, plenty of purposes that I have in my life and passions that I have in my life that have absolutely nothing to do with God or Christianity or Jesus or whatever. And so let me get some of the comments. Insured say, I agree. Okay, thank you. Glad to have you again. Christine said, exactly, totally incorrect. Thank you, Christine. Christine said, teach. And then Insured said, religion is usually a source for pain. Religion has been, I'm not going to rehash because I talked about this the last couple of times we were together. But Insured, to your point, I'm dealing with a really close friend of mine who wanted to be a minister, and I'm just going to do the really short version of it. He wanted to be a minister all his life. He's gone through a whole lot of stuff, financial and physically, where he almost died, so forth and so on. But he's deeply devout. Now he's having second thoughts about his faith after almost 50 years of being a believer, being devout, and wanting to be a minister. But it is causing him both physical and mental pain. I know so many people that have endured physical and mental pain because of religion. And that is the largest reason why I do this. When people ask me, I said because of the pain that religion has inflicted on other people. And so we need this. There are so many people that are crying out, that are trying to get out, that are looking for help, that are looking for other people who've gone through what they went through. And I've gone through some of it. I've experienced it. And so I am here for them and helping to create this space with all other people who work in this space as well, who do work in this space. So absolutely Insured so much. Christine said, the God in you guides you in doing the correct thing. 100%. I don't need some invisible guy in the sky to tell me what to do, how to act or whatever. It is innate in me. And so I am the God in me. People ask me, well, who do you believe in? I believe in me. So I don't need to believe in something that has never been proven and that can never be proven. And so, yeah. Christine also said, exactly, mental health pain. LMA, what's going on? Glad to have you. I cannot imagine seeing all of this nonsense and still calling myself a Christian. You know what? Let me stop right there. Let me give you multiple thumbs up. Just today, I posted something on my Facebook page, and it was a pastor who had talked about that those in the inner city, namely talking about African Americans and I guess and Hispanics, that they should be stoned to death, like in the Old Testament, for misbehaving. And he actually said that they should. It's like treating them like a disobedient child or a son. And so there's so much wrong with what he said. But I shared that on my social media page, and I have almost everybody, all of my friends are pretty much believers. But one guy in particular is a minister, and the other guy has a ministry. But he's a great guy. Both of them are actually great guys. They came back and challenged me and said, "Well, he's not really a Christian." Da, 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 da. I said, "No." I said, "Listen, from my understanding of being a Christian for 40 plus years, being hateful and being a bigot and being a racist does not disqualify you from being saved. There is nothing in the description of how to be saved okay, sure, I will. That says that one needs to be non-racist and non-bigoted, right? All it says, and from my understanding, and those of you who've been Christian or maybe even still be Christians out there, correct me. All it says is that you believe that Jesus Christ is your Savior, you ask for forgiveness, and you repent and you be baptized. To me, those of you, the people, Christians who believe in sin, which I think is another, it's more BS, but for the sake of this argument, hatred and bigotry, racism is just another sin, like gluttony, drunkenness, adultery, fornication. And so these people, this is what their sins are. So my friends, they're arguing with me that this guy is not. And to LMA's point, I'm saying to myself, you're seeing all of this. You're seeing the hatred from so-called Christians, as they would say. I label all of them as Christians because they call themselves Christians. You see the mistreatment of those who are less fortunate. You see the active mistreatment of those who are less fortunate, and so forth and so on. And you still call yourself a Christian. But LMA, here's a point. A few years ago, when there's a time when the word religion was in vogue, right? And then religion sort of got a bad rap. And so people stopped saying that they were religious. And then they went to, I have a relationship with God or relationship with my Savior, right? Because they didn't want to be following any of these labels, including Christianity. And then now they went to a point, they sort of went back to Christianity. But now, because of what you're seeing, because of what we all are seeing from Christians, they're moving away from the label Christian again. And they're calling themselves whatever, just a follower of Christ. Which if you call yourself, and I don't know how many times I've said this, if you call yourself a follower of Christ, the very definition of being a Christian is a follower of Christ. It's the very definition of being a Christian. And so as they try to disassociate themselves with Christians that they deem to not be the best or the right type of Christian or the right representation of their faith because they know how bad it looks. One of the things that I tell them, and I've told my friend who's battling all of this, is that you have to look deeper. What is it about this religion that lends itself to these people being able to act the way that they act? Again, I posted on my social media page. Is it that white evangelicals or those who are doing all these things, including some black evangelicals as well, but those people who are completely mistreating others, are they not afraid of what may happen to them according to the Bible? Or is it that they know something that other people don't know, or other people just are sort of ignoring? Is it that they know that this thing is really made up and there is nothing legitimate about religion, Christianity, or their God or whatever? Because that is the only thing that I can think. If you really, 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 believe the way that you believed, and the way that some of these people are acting, to the point of physically harming other people, I would think that they would be worried about spending eternity in hell. We know hell is made up, but spending eternity in what they believe to be hell, right? So there's something else going on. And so to LMA's point, I just can't imagine that people are comfortable with calling themselves a Christian. And then we can see that some people are pulling a shine away from it, but there's still a majority that's still comfortable with calling themselves a Christian. And now I'm not talking about those individuals who see all this stuff happening and they're okay with it. Those individuals who I consider, as I told my friend today on social media, he's one of the so-called good Christians. I just can't imagine that the so-called good Christians are comfortable with seeing the things that their the brotherings are doing out there, that are harmful and detrimental, oppressive, to others. And some of these others that they're doing it to are also other Christians. Those individuals, Christian nationalists and evangelicals who are proposing all these laws and doing everything, to many of the immigrants and people of color. Many of the immigrants and the people of color are also Christians. So that too, as that person, as me, I need to ask myself a question. It's two questions I should be asking. Number one, how can these people do this to me and I'm also a Christian, right? I know why, because it's not about religion. It's about power and racism and white supremacy and a culture. However, let's push that to the side. if I'm one of these people who are being harmed by other Christians who are passing laws and physically doing stuff to harm me, I got to ask my question. I got to ask the question: what Christianity are they practicing that allows them to harm me? That's the first thing. So I guess it's three questions. The second is, what is it in the Bible or the scriptures that allows them to do this to me without them being worried about what's going to happen to them? And thirdly, where is this so-called God that I worship and that that's my savior, that's not saving me or saving others who look like me, that's being mistreated by so-called other individual believers? And so those are the three questions that I would certainly ask myself um, about that. Um, One of the things that also I want to talk about, let's talk about some reasons why people have burnout. Um, uh, I'm going to read this list, but the thing that I don't like about this list, and I got this list, I was sort of doing some research, and what I don't like about this list is, well, I'll tell you at the end. Let me just sort of go through the list. First reason why people are fatigued of Christianity is just burnout and performance culture. People are just tired. They're just tired of going to church. They're tired of seeing the performance in church. I was like this, 30 years ago when I was in college. Uh, More than 30 years, 35 years ago when I was in college. I had grown up, in Alabama, and we had attended church all the time, 2 or 3 days a week, all day Sundays, so forth and so on. And I was just completely burned out. It wasn't about me questioning my faith. It was just about me being tired of going to church. Um, and then the performance culture of seeing the pastors and people in church doing the things that they're doing. I think talking in tongues is a performative act. I don't believe that can talk in tongues. It's crazy to me. I never, even when I was a Christian, it didn't make sense to me. But that's reason number one. Reason number two, the disagreement on social issues. And so when you see a lot of younger people, one of their big reasons as to why they're uh, fatigued from Christianity is their disagreement on social issues like LGBTQ, trans, abortion, the separation of church and state, climate control, science, and education. Young people are having a hard time reconciling their religion with these other things. Many of them are part of the LGBTQ community, or they have friends who are part of that community. Many of them have friends who may be part of the trans community. They don't understand why someone can dictate what they can do with their body in the case of abortion. Even more to the case that they may have had a friend who was assaulted or raped, and depending on the state that she lives in, forced to carry that child, which I think is horrendous. I cannot imagine that happening to someone. They're in conflict with science, the things that they learn in school, and then open up their Bible, and it's total contradiction. Science completely contradicts the Bible and vice versa. Anyone who tells you that it doesn't, they are ignorant, or they're willfully ignorant, or they're just flat out lying to you, or they're miserably, woefully misinformed. Um, and so again, climate issues, education, all of that, and so these people tend to be having issues with that as well. Insurance said drop your Facebook link, and I will. I think it's WC O'Neill. I think it's WC hyphen O'Neill or WC underscore O'Neill. Let me check it for you really quick, and I'll let you know. But yeah, Christine said yes. I couldn't find your face. I couldn't find your Facebook. I am going to right now. I am under. It's WC. Let me just type it in real quick. WC O'Neill. All right, that should be Oh, there it is. Yeah, you should be able to find me on Facebook, WC O'Neal. It's a picture of me and my beautiful wife in front of me. We out hiking somewhere. That's the picture. But yeah. So where did I stop at? Yeah. So thank you for that. Oh, you saw that one. Okay, good. So we're good. Um, yeah, and so that's the second reason. I stopped at the second reason. The third reason is lack of transparency and abuse. Again, we talked about the abuse issue earlier, but the number of people who have been hurt at the hands of the church or people in the church, clergy, other members of the church, and the church, the way church has protected. We're not only talking about on a large scale when we see stuff on the news, but we're talking about personal friends. I mean, I have a number of friends who've been hurt by someone in the church, clergy, and the church has protected them because they may have been a deacon or a pastor or just a member of the church in good standing. I've even seen where young girls have been abused, and the church members or the people of the church have blamed the child. In this case, it was a child, or it has been children. The church has blamed the child um, for um, for the misconduct and the abuse from the adult, which again, is crazy. And so we have that. The fourth reason is hypocrisy. We see this all the time. How many times do we see an evangelical or Christian, a person who professes to be this great Christian, come find out later that they've been part of, sexting or have molested kids or stolen from the church or whatever it is, have committed some heinous crime or been part of some assault or abuse, or and this is funny, haha, not funny, is many of the clergy members who profess and talk often about how wrong and how bad homosexuality is, just to find out later that they are part of the homosexual community secretly, and many of those, if not all of them, have been married. And so, yeah, so the lack of, the overall hypocrisy. We also talk about, them preaching about the greatness of God, and you need to do this and love your neighbor. And on this, excuse me, and on this side, they're doing just the opposite. The next one, unanswered questions and intellectual doubts. Again, how I got started was there were many questions that went unanswered when I was young and in the church. And as I got older and became interested in religion as a total topic, as a collective topic, I began to research some of those questions that I did not receive sufficient answers to as a young person. And so that was the beginning of me deconverting, because it didn't add up, it didn't make sense, and certainly there were intellectual doubts based on what I knew and based on my level of education and based on my IQ, that really didn't make sense in regards to the church and what was in the Bible and other uh, scriptures in other different religions as well. The next one, negative personal experience, and you hear this all the time, as a way to defend the religion. You will hear, and there is some truth to this for some people, but you will oftentimes hear believers say the only reason why you left the church is because you had a bad personal experience or church hurt, as they call it. What I oftentimes say about church hurt is that many of us experience church hurt. Um, Many of us who are part of other organizations or at work, there are things that happen that we're not happy with. There are negative things, but don't cause us to leave that organization or change jobs. What I will say about church hurt is that for many people, church hurt becomes the doorway, the entry point into asking more questions. Because as I always make this analogy, um, if I'm mentoring young men, and I tell them that I love my wife. I've been married 20 years, and my wife is the greatest thing, and marriage is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I go on and on and on and on and on. But every time these young men see me, I'm talking to a woman in a way that I should not be talking to her. I'm at a bar or I'm at a strip club or whatever. And so these young men, not only are they going to question me, but they're going to start to question the whole institution of marriage. Well, he's saying that marriage is so wonderful, but yet I see him out here with women who are not his wife. The same thing with the church and church hurt. You, as members of the church, and I remind them all the time, you are representative. You are a representative of your religion and your faith. And so I need to see, or people, well, not me, because I'm completely out of it, but people who you are trying to convert and bring in, they need to see you act in a certain way. And if you're not behaving in the way that they think that you should be based on the things that they know about your faith, then they're not only going to question you, rightfully so, they're also going to start to question the faith, right? And so that's the analogy that I use all the time when we talk about personal experiences. And then finally, the reason why I wanted to wait until the end is because these 6 reasons that I've labeled, for the most part, uh, puts the responsibility. It's sort of they sort of act as defenses for religion. Um, Even with the personal experiences, it's almost like, well, religion is real, this God is real. There are other reasons for you not being a believer. Maybe you're tired. Uh, you disagree with what the church's stance on some social issues. There has been abuse, but yeah, as Christians would say, well, there's abuse in everything. Yeah, there's some hypocrisy, but still, that doesn't change the word of God and da 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 da. But I get to number 7, and so I wrap all that up by saying is that those other 6 are basically symptoms of a bigger issue. The reason why I am Christian fatigue or I left Christianity is because the lack of evidence, period. Um, when I talk to people who want to challenge me, I say, you can say all you want to say. Those of us who have been Christian for a majority of our life, it is not an easy decision. It is not easy for us to walk away from what we've known, what we've depended on emotionally, from a psychological standpoint. We've lost friends, we've lost family members, we've severed relationships with people that we've been around forever. And so when a person finally walks away from religion or their faith in Christianity, I'm speaking about Christianity in particular because that's my experience. Um, it had nothing to do with the other 6. It had everything to do with lack of evidence. When I start to think from a critical standpoint and think about talking snakes and flying donkeys and people living inside wells for 3 years and there being no scientific archaeological evidence for Jesus, at least from a contemporaneous standpoint, the Great Flood, almost every major event or major character in the Bible, there is almost zero archaeological or scientific evidence for. There's no evidence for Moses. There's no evidence for Abraham. There's no evidence for Isaac. There's no evidence for Joseph. There's no evidence for Jesus. And certainly there's no evidence for God, any God whatsoever. Um, because a believer can question a non-believer and say, well, how did we get here? It is not my fault that they don't believe or don't trust or are unaware of the scientific plausible explanations for our existence. Notice I said plausible because that's the way science frames it. Those things, abiogenesis, Big Bang, natural selection, and evolution are the most plausible explanations for our existence. And even if all of those things were absolutely incorrect, that would not be evidence for your God. And so that's what I think what believers tend to forget. They think that it is a got you when they say, well, how did we get here? I always use the scientific version of it. And then they ask, well, what caused this and what caused that? The next question to me is, okay, so how do you think we got here? And of course, they say God. And so my next question is, well, who created God? And so now they do what's called a special pleading, meaning that, well, God always existed. Well, wait a minute. If you can break the natural laws to explain the existence of your God, then how come the breaking of those same natural laws couldn't apply to the universe? How come the universe couldn't have always been here? if your God has always existed, who says that the universe didn't always exist? And so we go on and on and on like that. So yeah, Christine said, teach the evidence is not there. Christine also said it's not our fault. Christians refuse to do the research. They refuse to do the research. But what's even more frustrating is that I would be almost all right if they refuse to do the research, but acknowledged that a lot of the stuff in the Bible was just completely asinine. But they will look at science and all of the evidence, all of the archaeological and scientific evidence, and say, "Oh, this is from man. This makes no sense to me." But yet, you believe that a man was born of a virgin. You believe that a talking snake convinced a woman to sin, and that we all have to pay for that. You believe that this invisible God created the earth in 6 days and rest on the seventh day. And even when the Bible, there are multiple contradictions to all of this. But yet you're willing to believe that a 2,000 plus old book written by illiterate sheep herders, but yet you question the signs where there's actual evidence for the things that they're talking about. So yes, that is even more frustrating. Uh, and so total, you're right, total insanity is totally insane, totally insanity. So yeah, absolutely. And so that's, so again, I know I'll be dead and gone by the time we're at a society where, well, let me not say that, because um, through my research and the things that I've noticed, the things I've read, we are turning more secular, right? Um, I love living out west where people pretty much leave you alone. Yeah, there are certainly religious people, Christian people here in Vegas, um, but there's not the same emphasis as you would see in, say, Georgia or Alabama. Um, there are, even if I look at something as mundane and simplistic as um, football season, because we West Coast and most of the football games start, they start at 1 o'clock on the East Coast time. It's 10 o'clock here, right? I went to a bar because I couldn't watch my beloved Cowboys this week, so I had to go to a sports bar. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the sports bar was packed with Cowboy fans. No, these are not people at church. They're packed a bar, and they are drinking. And I'm not a drinker anymore. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I did before in my past, but I don't do now. It's been a long time. I don't drink. I don't smoke. But what it made me think about was that, there are people who are just living their lives the way they want to live their lives. They're not defined by going to church or their religion or their faith. They're defined by being a human, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I think about, would I have ever seen in Georgia or Alabama a packed bar on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock with people watching football, as opposed to people either being at church or listening to church services on television or the radio? And so I do see that. Even in Georgia, when I was teaching at Georgia State, and I talked about this before, a significant number of my students were not religious. And they even, I mean, I even had a couple of students, and these were not international students. Some of these students even grew up in Georgia in the Atlanta area. Some of the students were from other states, but certainly most of these students were not international. There were some international students, but many of them were not. I remember even having students to literally said to me, "Who is this Jesus character?" And I was just blown away. And tell me more. And they thought it was sort of a, this fiction, which it is, this mythology it is. But it was interesting and refreshing to me to see this. And so, as I said before, I do think that we are. I don't have to think, but the facts support that. The evidence, the data supports that we are, as a collective society, moving away from Christianity, moving away from religion. That explains why you see the pushback so much. People will often say that when something is at its very end, it gives you it's everything else that it has left in it to keep it for its survival. And I think that's what we're seeing. At least I hope so. I don't think it's going to be like, in the next 10 or 15, 20 years, but I do think that we're seeing a gradual secularization of this society, which I think is a good thing. We don't need Christianity. We don't need God. We don't need Jesus to be good people. Just be good human beings for the sake of being good human beings. You're right, and sure, churches are empty. A lot of churches are being sold, not to other congregations, but they've been sold and knocked down, and been apartment complexes or whatever are being built. Churches are becoming more empty. And I do know a large majority of those people are still believers. They still believe in God. They're just not going to church. And I'm all right with that to a certain extent, because one of the things that I've said and that I've written about is that what we will get to first, which is beneficial to all of us, is that we will get to a situation, a society where religion, Christianity is sort of people are apathetic about their faith. Yeah, they still believe, but because of their apathy, you don't see the pushing of religion in public policy, which is which is what I look to do in the future, is to affect public policy void of religious influence, in particular Christian influence. And so that's how I want to spend, along with what I'm doing now. That's how I'm spending the rest of my life, is fighting, pushing for public policy that is void of the influence of religion, in particular Christianity. And so I think if we can get a majority of believers to the point where, yeah, they believe, and it truly becomes personal and apathetic to having it influence our public policy, and then you won't have the same issues that you see now with people trying to ban same-sex marriages, or this attack on the LGBT community, or trying to place the Ten Commandments in public buildings and requiring prayer and all this other kind of stuff. When we get past that and we create public policy that is good for everybody from a secular standpoint, it has nothing to do with your religion or your faith, but it's just good policy for the majority of us, then we will be at a place that I will be comfortable with. And so that's how I would like to end that today. Um, Thank you all for joining. Those of you out there who catch the replay, thank you for that. Let me, Christine, this is my email address for you to email me about the book. Send me, I'll send you my Cash App, and you send me your address and all that, and I'll get you a book out, a signed copy. Anyone else who would like that as well, this is the email that you can reach me. Tell me that you want a signed copy. I'll send you my Cash App. The book is $19.99, and I will get you a signed copy. And I we certainly appreciate that. So, Christine, that's the email address. And then those of you, I put my Facebook, my Facebook page in there. I know the young people said Facebook is for us older people, but I do a lot of, I have a lot of conversations and dialogue on Facebook, because most of my religious friends are about my age, and so we're still on Facebook. But I'm on Instagram as well, and I'll put all the information next time. Matter of fact, the next time I come, I'm going to put my Instagram and TikTok information on here before we get started. We'll do that, because I have a hard time trying to remember all of it. It's so much of it or whatever. So we'll do that next time, and you have that information as well, because I do. But most of the stuff that's on Facebook also goes over to Instagram. But TikTok is different, and I kind of go in more on TikTok, but just not as much. So yeah, we'll do that. But thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to enjoy the next few days of my homecoming. You guys be safe. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Insured. Who else? LMA. Certainly appreciate you, and all of the rest of you. Taisha, I know you're out there somewhere listening. Thank you so much. And for everyone else, stay safe, and I will see you in 2 weeks.